Howdy folks, Craig Levati here with the Houston Museum of Natural Science and the Beyond Bones Zoomcast. Today we're talking about the new Hall of Ancient Egypt with consulting curator Tom Hardwick. Hopefully Kat doesn't give away the entire hall. Howdy folks, Craig Levati here with the Houston Museum of Natural Science and the Beyond Bones Zoomcast. I am joined by my co-host, Kat Havens.
Hello.
This is a big week. I cannot stress that enough. I can't stress enough, quite honestly, this week. Stress is all around us. We are joined by our consulting curator, Tom Hardwick, who is putting the finishing touches on our new Hall of Ancient Egypt. Tom, how you doing?
Hey, Craig. Hey, Kat. Hanging in there. It's been a long week.
You're hiding in a tomb, it looks like. In sight.
I am in part of the new Hall of Ancient Egypt with walls.
A special tomb we've made from him.
Feels like it sometimes, but in fact, this has been part of the hall for a while. It's a faux stone relief in our section on Egyptian religion and belief. So we've got. I'm sheltering, seeking divine protection.
That's what we need this week, but we're excited because the brand new Hall of Ancient Egypt opens up to members on, by the time you guys see this, it'll probably be Saturday or Sunday. So you should have already seen it like 10 times. But for our purposes, the new hall does open up on Friday to members. Saturday opens up wide. The only way to get through the new hall is to get a ticket to see Ramses. And the Ramses the Great and the Gold of the Pharaohs, which will be also on display starting on Friday for members. It's a lot. There's a lot of stuff going on level 3 at the museum. If you've been coming to the museum lately, guys, and you've said, I want to go to 3, I can't go over there. This is why, because we're getting ready to open up Ramses and the Hall of Ancient Egypt. Like I said, it's a tandem. They work together, as Tom will tell you. Both halls sort of feed off of each other, and it's just a really big experience. I'm talking about it way too much because I've already been through the hall like 7 times, I feel like. And I could probably give a very, very short tour of it with my eyes closed at this point. But luckily, we are joined by Tom, and Tom is much better at that. And I understand, Kat, you finally got to see the hall this week.
I did. I had a special private tour from Tom himself, and it was really cool and very exciting. And very happy to have it back because it is by far my favorite hall. And now that it is new and reimagined, I'm even more excited about it. So
it's Tom, just if you could, I know we talked about this earlier in the summer, I believe. We sort of hinted at what was going to go on. And now we can talk a little bit more. What should we be looking for? What should people who are watching and listening right now, what should they be excited about the most for the hall?
The new hall, it occupies pretty much the same footprint as the old hall, which opened in 2013. And many of the objects are the same. What we have done is our design team and our object handling team have reconfigured the lighting to make it atmospheric around the cases. We're trying to give a sense of an ambience that is not a lightless museum gallery. So the lighting is ambient around the cases, and then within the cases, we've sharpened up the lighting no end. So in fact, in the 8 years since we installed the old hall, my eyes have started to deteriorate, and I too am grateful for it's not brighter because, one has to be careful of light levels on ancient and fragile material, but it is more focused and clearer. So the objects, many of which have also been remounted by our very talented arts handlers, you can see old friends in a new setting and a new light.
Literally a new light. I've made that joke way too many times.
See what
this
I did
week.
there?
There you go. You're a part of the crew now. You understand. You make all the puns for us before we even have to say anything. It's a really cool new hall, guys. We keep on saying new because it feels brand new. It really
does.
Yeah.
The lighting, to Tom's point, the lighting is just off the charts. Dustin Newcomb and our whole exhibits team and the Root Lab guys have just done such a fantabulous job of reimagining this hall. And it's been, I'm not going to lie, it's been stressful having it closed now since April or May. And, it's, but now it's going to be, obviously it's reopening, but, you have to go see Ramsey's. After you see Ramsey's, and Ramsey's is amazing. And I haven't been through Ramsey's yet. I'm actually doing that tomorrow. Either. So I'm doing that tomorrow, Thursday, for the media event. So I haven't been through Ramsey's. And Tom, don't give anything away about Ramsey's. I don't even know. Have they even let you in? Okay. They haven't let you in yet.
No, I've been involved as we're the borrower of the object. Okay. We've been involved with all of these sort of museum, I guess, the backroom work of checking the condition of the objects, supervising making of mounts. So I've been able to look at some wonderful objects up close, which as a curator is kind of what it boils down to be able to get your eyes all over and your hands on, astonishing, interesting material. There's these are pieces which I've been familiar with from textbooks and seeing them in vitrines in the Cairo Museum, but getting them out and up close with them is you learn so much. It is not only is it an unforgettable, if slightly nerve-wracking experience, but just the amount of extra data that pours into your brain, through your eyes, through your fingertips is
your
wonderful.
Sense of smell, I imagine, too, which would be something I think.
Well, we have some mummified animals, and they do have a smell. It's
distinct.
Not fortunately unpleasant, but yeah, indeed, it's
peculiar to them.
No one's going to admit to licking objects on display, but
I mean, I've licked dinosaur bones.
Most of all of one's senses, apart from that, are certainly given full play when you're studying and installing objects in an exhibition.
So what I hear you saying is no tasting. There's just no tasting allowed.
No tasting inside the Ramsey's Hall. Maybe in the Hall of Ancient Egypt. I don't know. I mean, some of those walls that we painted are pretty tasty
delicious
looking, flavorful. So, once you leave Ramsey's, you go down to this really funky Hall of Mirrors that we built, and then you spill out into the front of the Hall of Ancient Egypt. And it is just, Kat, you can speak to this.
It's amazing.
And when you walk in, there's a timeline, and a handy dandy timeline that Tom has made for us, sort of to get your idea spatially in, human history, where you are in ancient Egypt, exactly, what was going on at the time. And then it spills you into this amazing hall where there's everyday artifacts from, ancient Egyptian life. And there's, what did we say the other day? There's the health and beauty aisle in there where there's hair braids and there's combs,
makeup palettes and whatnot. But you missed the giant 3D printed statuary.
I'm trying to give things some breathing room. I'm not trying to give everything away, Kat.
Oh, am I being a spoiler alert? Sorry. I'm new. I'm
not gonna bring up.
It's hard to keep a 10-foot statue a secret for very long.
That's gonna be like an old proverb someday, a British proverb. It's hard to keep a 10-foot statue a secret.
A 10-foot 3D printed statue.
I was looking for scenes, if anything. It's amazing.
There is a really cool Easter egg that I am not going to bring up on the show. Somebody's going to have to check that out later. We bring it up on a video that me and Tom made yesterday, but you have to see it yourself.
And
you have to notice it yourself.
Noticed I'm sitting in front of an Easter egg.
Oh, you are?
This is one of our designers, when he made this, stuck his own logo in.
He did his own cartouche?
Yes.
Okay, I want to know who it was.
He's subsequently been identified and escorted from the building. No, but in fact, we were going through and he said, "Oh, it got through, my Easter egg." So
That's pretty
I was
awesome.
delighted by this. And then, in fact, when I settled down to Zoom here near one of the few outlets, I noticed fortuitously I was by this. So there we are. It's one of a number of little in-jokes we've scattered through the display.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's been a big undertaking for us, and obviously, everybody, at the museum, no matter what your level is, we're all invested in this thing. We're really excited for everybody to see it finally. It's been a labor of love, and I'm really excited for everybody to see what you've created, Tom.
I'm particularly excited about the way that you in particular chose to display certain things when you have like the stone plaque, the name just escaped me, the stone plaque behind you.
Store.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then you have some of the items from actual ancient Egypt that are pictured in front of it, so they can see what those items may have looked like in real life.
It's a little bit literal, but I'm sometimes literal minded. But
I am
someone
too.
who, I think one of the Egyptian representations aren't, they never tried for physical reality,
right,
in as much as, you've got a nose that, this is you with your nose and your beard or your lipstick or whatever.
Pictographic.
It's a, just as hieroglyphs are pictorial signs, so artistic representations are, spelling something out. But I think the conventions of representation are so sort of, in one sense, almost intuitive that you decode them without. Certainly, I do. You said that you decode them without breaking them down. So I thought, well, actually, let's get some objects. We've got scenes of people with things, and then we've got some of the actual same things near them, just to give one to say, right, they weren't just making it up, but to try to see how representation and what you see, how they shape up.
Well, an ancient Egyptian would have seen that and known exactly what it was, because it would have been something they saw in everyday life. We look at it and go, I don't know. But now you have some of those things and they're easily identifiable. And I think as a teacher, I love that, because I think it's very literal, and I think literal is good in that instance for sure.
And speaking,
so I was really pleased with that.
Speaking to the educational aspect too, I definitely know that educators are going to love it. And as you are an educator yourself, and I know that you just can't wait to get through there and start showing some of that stuff off to your students.
Absolutely. And we're going to be having our educator preview at the beginning of December, on December 3rd too. So that is super exciting. And it is a free opportunity for our educators. They have to sign up for it. And they can go to our website to find that. But it's an opportunity for them to come in and really get a look at things firsthand and how they can bring their students here and incorporate that into their curriculum, which I think there's so many opportunities from anywhere from, all the sciences to art to there's cross-curricular.
Yeah.
So I find it a really good teaching tool.
Did you like the CT scan?
I did like the CT scan.
So the fun story. So Ness Cons, I said his name right.
You did?
Yes.
Ness. I used to say Nesh Cons, but it's Ness Cons.
Texas Nesh
Cons.
Cons.
Like Texas, yeah. It's Ness Cons. And we have released the footage of the CT scan of him, and kind of looks like he's like roasting a little bit, like he's kind of like he's spinning. That sounds horrible. Yeah, but you can see what's inside the wrappings, because he's only been, I guess when we got him, he was a little bit around the head part. He was unwrapped.
So the mummy was unwrapped in, I think, 1900. If only I was by the label. Where, and it was invasive. The people who unwrapped him knew where mummies had things. So it generally, your heart, what people wanted to see from a mummy is the mummy's face, and then any amulets placed on the chest. So I think his wrappings were sliced open and they were sort of peeled back. And then he did indeed have a heart scarab and had two plaques of birds on his chest, and everything else was, he wasn't fully unwrapped, thankfully. And then about, I think, 10 years back, a professor at Baylor CT scanned him, so could see in both inside the bandages and inside the body itself. And people always say, how did he die? And well, can't tell you. It's, he's not missing a skull or anything, but
nothing obvious.
And I'm not a pathologist and a pathologist or bone expert, but what you can, Egyptologically, as everyone is tired of hearing, the brain is removed through the nose, the heart is left in the body, and the internal organs are usually removed because they're the bits of you that go off first. And those are put in the 4 canopic jars, and you're buried with them, but they're detached from you. In Nescon's period, so around 1000 BC, your internal organs were mummified. They were dried out. The whole point of mummification is, magically to turn you into a spirit, yes, and physically to dry you out so you don't go off. And so you're put in salt, which is changed every so often to, turn you into jerky. And in this case, Nescon's internal organs were desiccated, and instead of being put in jars, they were wrapped up, given a little wax figure of a protective god, and put back inside him. And then his empty space in his brain was filled with something. And all of these things are denser than bone, so they come out whiter in a scan or an X-ray. So when you play around with the contrast on the CT scan, you can see things of different densities, and his head is really full of dense white stuff. And then these 4 little white mummified figures of gods are in the body, and they're made of, in all probability, resin or wax or some mixture of the two. So without opening him up any further, which, current mummy studies frowns at, for 100 years, you slashed mummies open with gay abandon, and now you really don't do it. So poor old Nescon's, again, to use sort of the language of documentaries, his secrets have been unveiled, but he's been spared the physical indignity of unwrapping anymore. And going around in a circle, a projection of the CT scan, as Craig says, he's sort of rotating around all axes, it's good for TikTok, is on display above the mummy, so you can see the wrapped mummy and then see inside in the projection above him.
Well, it was fascinating when we were there, because he would go, there's the, the plaque that covers his incision, to protect him because he'd been, desecrated or injured in that spot. And there's the little white thing.
It's the embalmer's incision. So, I mean, it is desecration, but that's the...
But they had to do it. Stick your hand in.
Yes.
To eviscerate. But it was still like... I thought, and tell me if I'm wrong, because I could have this wrong, that, they would pelt, at least as the story goes, they would pelt the slitter with ritually, perhaps with stones after he made that cut, right?
Yep. And again, you are meant to use a flint knife rather than, bronze or copper or later on iron. Mm-hmm. And partly it's a ritual thing, you do it that way because that's how it's always been done. And another part is that flint is, if you are a good napper, you can make something that is sharper than
surgical steel.
Yes. So it goes both ways.
Yeah.
But again, is it Herodotus or Diodorus? Rats, I can't remember.
I think it's Diodorus, actually.
They the moment you've sort of profaned the body, you have to, you have to leg it.
Run and get pelted. Craig, would you like to be the slitter?
I don't, I can barely even cut meat. Like I throw things in the microwave or throw it on the grill. So I don't think I could ever be a butcher. That's basically what you would be doing, right? I mean, it's just butchering meat. I will say this, next to him as well is also his coffin. And on a lighter subject here, because we just spent 5 minutes talking about sticking our hands up in the guts of a poor man here. Right next to it is the coffin, and the coffin, you can really see a lot of the good detail now, colors and things that came out of the coffin because the lighting is so good.
Yes. And again, I mean, it's a good, I hope people will, it's a wonderful piece of painting, and you can, so in fact, he comes from a period where people weren't making big decorated tombs anymore. The country was not so well off. And so kind of all the decoration that you would have had on the walls of your burial chamber gets compressed into one or two nested coffins. So it's this incredible sort of compressed decoration, which is
with his
repays careful study.
Yeah.
He got kind of like the budget burial, right? I guess
everyone did at that period. It was
But the coffin doesn't look budget.
Well, I mean, for then obviously, but yeah, you're not having a big giant, to do. You're not, getting buried with, every single thing you've ever touched in your life.
But in fact, there's another, yet another secret to unveil about Nescons and Karakuni, who is a born and bred Houstonian, now at professor at UCLA. A couple of years back, she did carbon-14 dating of the wood from his coffin. And that's, you measure the levels of radiocarbon in a sample, and you plot it on a decay curve. It tells you when the organic thing,
the tree died.
Yes, when it stopped taking up carbon, and the coffin is. The wood of the coffin is a couple of hundred years older than the date of it. We can establish the date on, just on stylistic parallels. It's like if you find an avocado bathroom suite,
it's probably
it's from the 70s.
Yeah.
So on the by style, Nescons is 22nd dynasty, and the coffin is, I think, 20th or 19th dynasty. So. What happens is the coffin is either using recycled wood, or in fact it's an old coffin that's just been repainted.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, was it something that either it was secondhand coffin, was it,
or somebody, maybe Grandpa's done with that,
third hand coffin?
He's used it long enough, and you dump him out and
Karakuni has written on sort of the pragmatics of death. And there is also this, it's something that's always interested me. There's this disjunction between people saying, yes, you can take it with you, and here you are buried with
the best stuff the family has.
With your stuff. I mean, and in fact, there's also evidence that your children would, hive off their stuff and you'd be left with their leavings. But, here you are being buried with stuff, and yet you would always know someone whose tomb had been robbed. How do you, what is the to us, there kind of seems to be, a cognitive,
sacrilege kind of.
There's a dissonance between saying, well, of course, I'm taking this with me because it's forever, and then, but hang on, in this case, I'm using my grandfather's coffin. What, are we, do we need to rethink?
Define forever.
How do we need to rethink the way the Egyptians thought about it? Or are we imposing our own, either or in a culture that was both and?
Yep.
But again, yes. Can we say that eternity, as defined by museums, development boards, generally lasts 25 years? Or do we cut this, Johnny? But it is,
I think that's
there's a difference in the sentimentality, I think, over the generations, maybe that.
Yeah.
I've noticed that too, that I spent a whole weekend in Los Angeles recently just going to famous cemeteries out there. And you definitely do see a difference over the decades of how we buried people, how we entombed people, and social mores change. I mean, I saw, there's the above ground tombs, there's the mausoleums, there's the niches, there's, we're only going to have a little spot for the ashes, or, we're going to have a giant urn that I've seen in one of the halls at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. And it did make me think a little bit more about ancient Egyptians and how are, like, if, in 3,000 years or so, somebody comes around to one of our cemeteries and goes, wow, this is interesting. Yeah. Why did we bury coffins inside of another coffin? And then why did we put who were these faces on these stones? And, why did we bury people with things, or why did they cremate people? And why did that kind of thing. I think it's just the sentimentality changes too. And
it's also cultural from place to place. And America's different because we have so many cultures here that are all sort of blended.
But also coming from Britain, generally one is cremated. Mm-hmm. And that, took 100 years to gain
acceptance.
And in fact, I'm bad on the details, but the first man to, I think, cremate his wife in the Victorian era was prosecuted, or
he was
almost. Yeah, he was a druid, wasn't he?
I think he was. Yeah.
Yes, and then fast forward 140 years, and
that's the way to do it.
All the plots are full,
mm-hmm.
and now we're trying to.
Islands are small.
America, the States is still far more a culture of embalming than cremation. So
it's interesting
because not every dead person back in ancient Egypt was obviously mummified. That's another aspect to this too, that there was not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sand burials.
That's sort of something I would like to bring out a little more, is that there you go, regrets for the whole. But it's something that I think is implicit, is that the stuff we're seeing belongs to, by and large, to the 10% or mm-hmm. of Egyptian society, the people who had cool stuff. Mm-hmm. And what happened to the people who didn't is much harder to know.
We're looking at the fancy stuff, but what did the paupers do? What did the people the enslaved peoples, how did they, obviously not everybody there is that concept that everybody got mummified. I think that simplistic thing. Well, it's not everybody rated.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing you can say is that everyone probably got naturally mummified, because you certainly don't bury people in farmland.
Right.
That's wasting a valuable resource. Mm-hmm. So in fact, finding a body with no cool stuff in, from a sort of a curator's perspective, it's very difficult to assign a date to it. You need, mm-hmm. That for that you have to be far better versed in forensic anthropology than I am, or have access to a radiocarbon laboratory to date it. But the irony is that burial in evisceration wrapping is far better at drying you out than anything else. But of course, for the Egyptians, it wasn't about that. It was a magical and spiritual process with a physical dimension. So being chucked in the sand is, you might make a more beautiful corpse, but you haven't had the
ritual,
attention, the affection, and the magic lavished on you mm-hmm. to get you into the afterlife.
Do you think that the idea of mummification, though, however, came from the original kind of natural mummification? They went, now it decays when we stick it in a tomb, so we have to do something.
That's one of these things that is one of the great givens of Egyptology, and yeah, I would go with that. But it would be interesting to interrogate it further. I mean, one again story is, the god of mummification, who is not on this wall. I'm not going to tilt it back up. Anubis has a jackal's head, and sort of the back formation. What is a jackal doing mummifying you? Is that people saw jackals digging people
stealing
up,
their family members,
and then worked it backwards to say, well, no, he is not eating my grandfather. He is taking extra special care of him. So, it's the idea of transforming something you are that is beyond your control and nasty, and saying, actually, it's really good.
Sure.
That again, that's one of the things you learn in Egyptology 101, which perhaps at a higher level you might profitably re-examine.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say that's definitely the higher thinking of that. And then we also color it with our current social mores, to where we don't, unless we went back in time and actually asked them, okay, now, so what's the deal with this? And they'd be like, it just seems fun. What if we go back and what if we go back and they're just like, it just seems cool. We didn't really have any other there's no, hidden meaning with this stuff, guys. It's sort of just religious.
It reminds me of Motel of the Mysteries, which is a great book about anthropology. And they find a hotel room like 2,000 years later. And the archaeologist thinks like the toilet seat is a royal collar.
Yeah.
And he speaks into the toilet because that's the way they communicated with the gods. And I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. But you look at it and you go, I think that's kind of reasonable, observations, making inferences based on his observations.
Well, if you look at even like going back to my cemetery analogy example, I guess that, you could definitely see what's more important for people, the things that they're buried with. And are we going to look back in 3,000 years when they go, ooh, wow, I can't believe they buried people. They didn't, do some other, situation, but then they will be digging up our corpses and, studying their bodies too, and wondering, okay, well, they did these few slits here, they embalmed them, but they left the brain. That's weird. Maybe at one point, or think about it with modern health technology. One day they're going to be like, I can't believe they just buried all these good parts. Like, I can't believe they just threw all this good meat.
The batteries in the coffin must have been for their afterlife.
And that's just an interesting thing.
One reason why I'm
getting cremated,
favoring cremation. Although
I don't want to burn.
An archaeologist friend of mine is like, no, I'm gonna fill my coffin with all sorts of weird stuff, just so I can puzzle people.
I have a total collection.
They may even look back and go, okay, then, people that were cremated, maybe they were going to think they were lower on the totem pole than the people who were buried. And, that's the thing with mausoleums are the same way. And I kind of see mausoleums almost as modern pyramids, where, it's these amazing marble buildings that we've built, and we've shoved these coffins in there, or we've shoved the cremains in there. Yeah. And, I will say, I think you brought this up in one of our walkthroughs, that even a lot of the architecture that I saw, that old, Hollywood architecture, was built a lot off of ancient Egyptian architecture.
They had obelisks everywhere in the Victorian age.
It was coming back. And maybe there is some sort of correlation between ancient Egypt and then ancient and like old Hollywood. Maybe there was because they definitely were very influenced. It was a trend.
It was a fad.
Yeah. And so, in fact, we've got some of these. What are we calling them, Craig? Experiential rooms.
Yes. You've taught me the word evocations.
Thank you.
That's the word that I've learned now, that it's now been coming out of my mouth over the past few weeks.
Thank goodness. But in the labels I've been writing, a little bit of it is me knowing that my dear colleagues will be sarcastic about them. So I'm covering my back. But part of it is also that these rooms stand in a long maybe not necessarily, well, definitely not inglorious, maybe not totally glorious, but certainly fun tradition of people
Instagram.
taking Egyptian themes and running with it because they think they're cool. It's not just the objects, it's reusing them in, using Egyptian themes, either just because they look kind of cool, as might be the case, the Chrysler building with these wonderful lotuses on the elevators, or because they actually give Egypt has sort of meaningful associations. And on the East Coast, there are plenty of 19th century cemeteries in Massachusetts, New York, the big one, Mount Auburn in Massachusetts. Their entranceways are Egyptian in style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there was this idea that this was sort of appropriate and solemn and also kind of slightly non-denominational because Gothic or classical were freighted with
Christianity.
I think are you Catholic or Protestant? Maybe even I'm not sure how non-denominational these 19th century cemeteries were, whether if you were Jewish or Muslim, whether you'd be buried there or not. But I think Egypt had this solemn, massive and air of mystery without being, okay, are you Catholic or Protestant? And so our evocational rooms not only aim to give people a sense of the setting of many of the things we have in our cases, but also are just part of this tradition of people, designers, thinking, let's have some fun with ancient Egypt. If you've ever been to London, Harrods, one of the fancy department stores, has several rooms decorated in the 90s in the Egyptian style, because the owner at the time, Mohammed Al-Fayed, was Egyptian, and he was anxious to become British. And I think as part of this, he was showing his wealth and discernment and also his Egyptian heritage. And when you look at the sphinxes that are in the Harrods Egyptian room, they bear a slightly too close resemblance to
him,
to Mr. Al-Fayed himself. Fortunately we didn't go that far in our rooms. There are no gods that with sideshow bob hairstyle and round glasses.
So we can make we could have like modern, like a Dolly Parton Sphinx, or
Yes.
our modern saints, as it were, our Dolly Parton, that kind of thing. There's the two rooms are really interesting. Kat, you got to see those, right?
I did, and I'm not saying anything because I'm afraid I'm going to give it away.
There is the one, we'll talk about them. We're not going to give I don't want you giving away the whole store.
I have a hard time with that, Craig.
There's the first room I really like is you call it the evocation of the tomb of Nefertari. And it's got these cool little benches in there, and there's this really cool mood lighting. I think we brought up the fact that it's a makeout room. I didn't say that. Somebody else did. It's not a makeout room. Don't make out in there.
Tom said it.
Unless you want to be on CCTV and regularly patrolling HPD.
And we put that on the HMNS YouTube channel. Johnny will cut it up and put it up in there. But no, that room is really, really interesting. And then there's also I call it the Watch the Throne room, because it reminds me of the album cover from the Jay-Z and Kanye West album, Watch the Throne. It's gold, and it is an evocation of, I guess, one of the shrines for King Tutankhamun.
One of his 4 shrines. He was buried when Carter and Carnarvon opened the burial chamber in 1923, they found this giant gold box filling the burial chamber with sort of 18 inches leeway on every dimension. And that was the outermost of 4 gilded wood shrines, each one carved and decorated with images and spells to protect the king and usher him into the afterlife. and they were nested, like Russian dolls, 4 shrines, then the stone sarcophagus, then a gilded wood coffin, then a gilded wood and glass inlaid coffin, then the 3rd coffin of the king made of solid gold. I think it weighs 110 pounds or kilos, which is pounds, I think. And then within that, the king's mummy, protected by the mask. So, in fact, we're looking at this outside in, and from inside out, reconstructing the burial. He's wrapped in layers of wrappings, coffins, sarcophagus, and shrines. And there are rats. I should have counted. There are probably many hundreds of square feet of carved and gilded shrine with spells.
Lots of protection.
And we've picked 4 sort of characteristic scenes for the walls of the room, painstakingly reproduced with a laser cutter, then gilded, not with real gold leaf, but with gold.
We tried to do the gold
foil,
thing, but yeah.
Don't scratch it off. And then varnished to
protect it,
it and give it a bit more, because it just wasn't blingy enough.
Shine.
But it's also, I think, the other thing is, did you ever do that thing of you stick a buttercup under someone's chin and say, "Do you like butter?"
Yes.
And,
yes.
The yellow reflects onto your face. This was the afterlife for the Egyptians. You were your skin was gold, your mask was gold, because you were basking in the rays of the sun. You were enfolded in the sun for eternity, wearing, I hope, lots of factor 50. So, in fact, when you're in there, your own skin, glows from gilding. So, kind of cool.
It's going to be one of the...
But there's also a little bit of, and a meaningful pharaonic takeaway from it.
That's another room that I posted earlier that's going to be one of the most photographed inside rooms that we have at the museum. I think so.
It was like you walk in, you go, whoa.
Yeah. And there's a bench there that you can lay on like you're dead. They already had me do that a few times, and there's a whole thing. And
I had that inclination, but I resisted.
Take a photo of me. I was always a little kid that would stand in front of something at the museum at HMS and go, "Mom, take a picture of me in front of this." And then she'd be like, "Okay." It was like, I had my own personal Annie Leibovitz running around with me. It's a really cool hall. Guys, come and see the hall. Tom has done such an amazing job. Our designers have done an amazing job. All of the videos that are going to come out with it too are really special. I got to walk through the hall. We did a little abbreviated walkthrough yesterday, and it was just a joy. And I've enjoyed, to get real sweet here, I've enjoyed walking around with you, Tom, and learning things from you. And it's been rubbing off on me. And like I said, I've taken a few people through the hall already, some media members, and
what's your new word?
Evocation. Okay. And when I get done with it, I'm just like, I just sounded like Tom. Like I'll go over there and I'll be like describing something because it's like osmosis. I'll sort of gain things from you, and then I'll be like, and then Tom will walk up and I'll be like, "Oh, I was just telling her about this, and this," and you're like, "Yep, that's right." And I'm just like,
it's funny. It reminds me of my first art history class, and the only word I came out with was supplication.
Oh God, but I have learned a lot, and but that goes back to full circle how much we love educating people at the museum and how excited we are. I'm just excited. Tomorrow's the media event, and I'm excited for the media people to be excited. That's cool. I want them to take pictures and all and post it on their social. But I'm really excited for people to see it after they see Ramsey's and they know that this is our own.
A great combination, 30,000 square feet of.
And you two are going to be so tired by the time this is all over that we're preparing. I don't know if you knew this. Spoiler alert. We prepared a tomb for each of you.
Fine. It's
like a little bread oven.
Put me in that gold box.
Slide you right in.
Put me in the gold box and I'll be fine.
Stars on the ceiling.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Put me in the gold box. Tom, which one would you want to go into? There's the other tomb room, right? The other room. There's another room over there I think you like a lot too. You spend a lot of time in there.
Our middle kingdom room.
I like the middle kingdom room the best.
He likes the middle kingdom room. I'm about the gold. Like I said, there's going to be so many like pictures taken in there. Like it's just, guys, we did a really good job. I'm talking to you guys right now on YouTube watching this. Come see it. It's really cool. It's really awesome. You're gonna flip over it and you're gonna walk out with so many facts stuck in your brain. And I'm just really excited. I'm proud of this one a lot. So
I'm looking forward. There's always that moment where you think, I'm still enjoying having this place to myself. There's always one extra tweak you can make, but at some point you've got to say, right,
Are you taking notes for the 2033 reboot that we're doing? The 2033. Do you already have a list of like, okay, we got to change that. We're going to have to change that. This is going to be good. I'm going to come back with that. Well, I'm pretty sure by
our wonderful docents and volunteers are very good at spotting typos and even better at telling you tactfully that
are they?
You don't feel like a schmuck.
And also,
they let you know and forgive you at the same time. So
I'm sure
it's also wonderful having them.
By 2033, I'm sure we'll actually have like AI representations of NESCons walking around, like, tapping people on the shoulder and saying, I prefer
for that not to happen.
Like, what you think of my corpse? Really cool, huh? Anyway, that was my coffin.
This boils down to the objects. It'll bad luck. It's going to be about the objects still. Yes. That's always been our focus.
So no AI.
Looking forward to
running around
the first day and seeing people come in. I'll be there as the mystery shopper.
Your voice gives you away. I don't know. Can you do like a really good Texas accent so where you could like blend in with the crowd?
Oh, I want to hear it.
No, that's another podcast. We'll leave on that cliffhanger.
It's my special gift here, Tom. I'm going to get fired if I can't get you to like imitate like a baby alligator or I make people do impressions.
You do the T-Rex. She makes people do the T-Rex voices sometimes too.
I do.
I'll deep fake them. Don't worry.
There we go.
Deep fake him.
Excellent.
Tom, get some rest. I'm really excited to show this haul off this next week. And get some rest.
All right.
Well, thanks.